کنفرانس مطبوعاتی دکتر طارق الهاشمی نایب رئیس جمهور عراق با حضور استرون استیونسون رئیس هیئت رابطه با عراق در پارلمان اروپا و نخست وزیر سید احمد غزالی. رزیدانس پالاس، مرکز کنفرانس های مطبوعاتی در بروکسل، مقر اتحادیه اروپا، 17 اکتبر 2013، 25 مهر 92.
خبرگزاری فرانسه، بروکسل، 17 اکتبر 2013. طارق الهاشمی طی کنفرانس مطبوعاتی که پارلمانترهای اروپایی نیز در آن شرکت داشتند، نسبت به وضعیت سیاست در کشورش جدی بود. به نظر او عراق در یک نوع دیکتاتوری و استبداد فرو می رود. او ابراز تأسف کرد که عراق توسط نخست وزیر نوری مالکی و حزبش به گروگان گرفته شده است. وی گفت مالکی به یک تهدید برای آینده عراق تبدیل شده است و همچنین یک تهدید برای یک پارچگی کشور و ثبات منطقه است. وی مقامات حکومت مالکی در عراق را متهم کرد که دست به یک پاکسازی نژادی و فرقه‌ای زدند. طارق الهاشمی که سنی‌های کشورش را گرد می‌آورد، همچنین به یک محاکمه علیه رژیم ایران دست زد که دعوای فرقه‌ای را در عراق دامن می‌زند. وی گفت عراق کاملاً با فرقه‌گرایی مذهبی زیر سلطه رژیم ایران افتاده است. آقای هاشمی گفت به دستور رژیم ایران، رژیم عراق اجازه می‌دهد سلاح و مهمات برای حکومت بشار اسد از عراق عبور کند. وی اضافه کرد عراق به یک دالان هوایی و مسیر اصلی برای کمک‌های نظامی رژیم ایران به رژیم اسد تبدیل شده است.
آژانس عکس اروپا، 17 اکتبر 2013. طارق الهاشمی نایب رئیس جمهور عراق همراه با استرون استیونسون رئیس هیئت رابطه با عراق در پارلمان اروپا و نخست وزیر سید احمد غزالی از الجزایر یک کنفرانس مطبوعاتی در بروکسل در 17 اکتبر در رابطه با وضعیت سیاسی عراق برگزار کرد. نایب رئیس جمهور عراق طارق الهاشمی در رابطه با آخرین وضعیت حقوق بشر، گسترش تروریسم در عراق، بحران سیاسی و چشمانداز برای کشورش، حمایت دولت مالکی از حکومت بشار اسد و همچنین دخالت رژیم ایران در عراق و سیاست‌های آمریکا و اتحادیه اروپا در مورد عراق صحبت کرد. دکتر طارق الهاشمی در تمامی 10 سال گذشته یکی از برجسته‌ترین شخصیت‌های سیاسی عراق بوده است. او از سال 2006 نایب رئیس جمهور عراق بوده است.
لا لیبر، چاپ بلژیک، 18 اکتبر 2013. طارق الهاشمی نایب رئیس جمهور یک رهبر عالی رتبه و یکی از با نفوذترین رهبران سنی عراق است. او در مصاحبه با لا لیبر در بروکسل گفت عراق از یک دوران فوق‌العاده دشوار عبور می کند. ظرفیت عراق برای فائق آمدن بر این بحران محدود است. از این رو ما از جامعه بین المللی و به ویژه از اتحادیه اروپا می خواهیم مسئولیت ایجاد تغییر در عراق را همراه ما به عهده بگیرند. پیامدهای آنچه در کشور من رخ می دهد در مرزهای عراق محدود نخواهد ماند. طارق الهاشمی مالکی را بخشی از مشکل دانست و گفت او باید استعفا دهد. آنگاه همه احزاب عراقی باید دور میز گرد آیند و زیر نظر بین المللی به گفتگو بپردازند. یعنی اتحادیه اروپا، اتحادیه عرب و ملل متحد. آنها شاهدان و حامیان این جلسه خواهند بود و بر تضمین نتیجه این جلسات نظارت خواهند کرد. مالکی روند دموکراتیک را به گروگان گرفته است. او کنترل نیروهای امنیتی، قراردادهای بزرگ دولت، رسانه‌های رسمی و دستگاه قضاییه را به دست گرفته است. به این دلیل است که مالکی می‌تواند هر سیاستمدار را هدف قرار دهد. هیچ کس نمی‌داند در زمینه امنیتی در عراق چه می‌گذرد. کشور من 25% بودجه سالیانه خود را به امنیت اختصاص می‌دهد. بیش از 1 میلیون نفر در امور امنیتی و ارتش فعالیت دارند. با این وجود وضعیت فاجعه بار است. بی‌عدالتی، فساد، مدیریت خراب و انحصار قدرت محیطی را ساخته است که به افزایش خشونت دامن می‌زند. تنها راه حل برقراری یک حکومت مدنی و دموکراتیک است، نه یک حکومت دینی وابسته به رژیم و آخوندهای حاکم بر ایران. بنابراین من تضمین می‌دهم روزی که مالکی از قدرت کنار برود، اوضاع تغییر خواهد کرد.
So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for coming to our press conference. My name is Struan Stevenson. I'm chairman of the Delegation for Relations with Iraq in the European Parliament. I invited His Excellency Dr. Tarigh Al Hashemi, the Vice President of Iraq, to come to Brussels to conduct high-level meetings with myself, with the Vice President of the European Parliament, Alejo Vidal-Quadras, today, and with many other leading members of Parliament and many senior members of both the British Parliament, friends from America, academics and leading personalities from around the world. We had some highly productive meetings. It's of absolute importance to us that we understand clearly the situation in Iraq at the present time. When I was last in Baghdad 18 months ago, there was 4 hours of electricity a day. Very few people had access to fresh running water. The sewage systems had broken down. Basic infrastructure was missing. Security levels were disastrous. There were roadblocks every few hundred meters. But since then, the situation has deteriorated. This year so far, 5,800 people have lost their lives in terrorist atrocities, assassinations. And yet, oil wealth has been restored to the levels last seen during the time of Saddam Hussein. Billions of dollars of oil revenue are flowing into Baghdad every year. Where is that money being spent? Why is that money not being spent on the citizens of Iraq? Why has electricity not been restored as I was promised 18 months ago? Why is it still as bad or worse? Why do we now see the country spiraling towards civil war, with sectarian clashes now becoming commonplace on a daily basis? And in His Excellency Tarigh Al Hashemi, we have someone of renown as a Democrat, someone who is a renowned freedom fighter, who unlocked the secret prisons in Baghdad, and who fought for the rights of the ordinary citizens, who tried to end sectarianism and unite the government of Iraq to represent the people and not to represent themselves and their own financial interests. And yet he has suffered more than most. 3 of his siblings have been murdered, 2 brothers and a sister assassinated. And as he said in a meeting we held yesterday, he never sought revenge for this because he wanted to bring the people of Iraq together. And now he has been accused in the most appalling question of injustice, where his bodyguards were arrested 2 years ago. 2 of them were tortured to death. Human Rights Watch said that his parents were unable to recognize one of the bodies of a 33-year-old bodyguard of His Excellency Tarigh Al Hashemi. When the body was returned to them, it had been so severely tortured. And based on false confessions induced under the most barbaric tortures, His Excellency was accused fraudulently of terrorism offences. So he has risked his life and personal security to come here to speak to us today, and I hope all of you appreciate that, because I can tell you, I do from the parliamentary perspective. For us, this is an invaluable opportunity to gain insight into what is happening inside Iraq, and I have pleasure in giving the floor to His Excellency Tarigh Al Hashemi, Vice President of Iraq.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, Mr. Stevenson. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I am glad to be here in Brussels and responding to the invitation of members of the EU Parliament who share our strong concern about the disastrous situation in my country. I came to deliver the message of the Iraqi people to the European community, and from Europe to the rest of the world, invoking them for help from sinking into a real civil war and collapse of the state before it's too late. Yesterday and today, I had wonderful meetings with influential dignitaries and human rights activists, and I'm so pleased to know that they are following up the horrible development in my country, and they do their best to help. I provided the EU members and the activists with important documents showing clearly the atrocities of the current regime, headed by the Prime Minister Maliki. I am not exaggerating if I say that Iraq has never witnessed in its modern history a government as worse as the current one. After 8 years under this government, Iraq has been deteriorating in public services, social justice, transitional democracy, development, judiciary system, national peace and security. Last but not least, foreign policy. Al-Maliki has not only become a threat to the future of Iraq, but also a danger to the unity of the country and the stability to the region. Today, I am here to invoke the European Union and the free international communities in the names of the principles and values they believe in. The principles of human rights, women's rights, democracy, good governance, transparency, rights of minorities. I strongly request you to protect these principles and values in my country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Al Hashemi. It's also my great pleasure to welcome and to ask to say a few words the former Prime Minister of Algeria, Sid Ahmad Jalil.
Mesdames et Messieurs, je suis ici, j'ai l'honneur de représenter, en ma qualité de président du comité arabo-musulman pour la défense des habitants d'Ashraf. J'ai l'honneur d'accompagner le président Tarigh Al Hashemi, vice-président de la République irakienne, non seulement pour lui dire le soutien de tous les adhérents de cette commission, mais aussi pour souligner que les souffrances que subit le peuple irakien, et on le sait, par le numéro 2 du pouvoir légal, condamné à mort, sa famille décimée, ses gardes-corps torturés et ses partisans emprisonnés. Eh bien, le bourreau est le même. Ceux qui massacrent les habitants d'Ashraf et les membres de l'OMPI, ceux qui massacrent le peuple irakien, ceux qui persécutent les dirigeants élus de ce peuple, c'est les mêmes. Et je laisse la parole à personne plus qualifiée que moi pour répondre à vos questions concernant l'Irak.
Merci beaucoup. Can we put the lights down and watch a short film, very short?
بالفلوجة؟
متوفين هنا.
اهلك متوفين؟
ايه.
وما عندك احد؟
ما عندي احد. صار لي 3 اشهر خواتي واخوتي صغار ما شايفين.
ورا 15 يوم صاير طلع كله.
اي.
رجعونه للقصر. ورا اسبوع اجى كتاب الفراش مالته ما طلعوا.
ما عاد ما يوصلنا، احنا يوصلنا فراش موظف في 24 ساعة.
لا استاذ قلنا له لما شيء استقسم ولا
شنو قال لك فراش؟
استاذ القاضي ما صعدنا 18 واحد صعد.
قد صار هذا الشيء؟
صار 5 اشهر.
خلي يشوفون العالم خلي يشوفون حقوق الانسان بالعالم. تيزاب هذا؟ تيزاب هذا
15 يوم يدقون علينا. ما عارف دعوتنا شيء.
وين ابيام كان؟
بعمرة الفلوجة.
وين براك؟
عملت الفلوجة.
بس صغرت على دهوات.
انتم منين من اي مناطق؟ من اي مناطق انتم؟
نطين فيها اعظميه فلوجه دوره. يوسفيه. والله على الفارق ايش معك؟ والله احنا بالمناطق واللقب هاي هي بس. صار لي سنه ونص. نطلب من عندكم؟ اي والله سنه. صار لي سنه. انا صار لي سنتين فاتت علي المدرسه.
ان الاغلبيه من عندكم ماخذيهم على الشبهه وعلى مخبر سري، والمخبر السري لا يعلم الا الله سبحانه وتعالى ايش وقت راح يشرف ويقول كلمته الباطله ويدين الابرياء. هاي المسائل كلها نعرفها اخواني. نعرف اكو تاخير في حسم قضاياكم ملفاتكم، واحنا راح نتابع هذه المسائل. انا اطلعت خلال لقائي اليوم على عدد من الحالات بها تعذيب، بها اغتصاب، اضافه الى تعديات مختلفه على حقوق الانسان.
وكان عدد من أعضاء البرلمان العراقي يرافقهم نائبا الرئيس العراقي عادل عبد المهدي وطارق الهاشمي قد قام بزيارة معتقل التسفيرات في منطقة الرصافة ببغداد. وقال الهاشمي أثناء زيارته المعتقل إن المعتقلين يتعرضون لأسوأ ظروف الاحتجاز والاعتقال.
معتقل التسفيرات التابع للحكومة العراقية في منطقة الرصافة في بغداد. هذا المعتقل يضم خلف قضبانه مئات المعتقلين، وبينهم معاقون جسديا اعتقلتهم القوات العراقية، وآخرون قضى بعضهم أكثر من 5 سنوات دون محاكمة أو تحقيق.
طارق 5 سنين من قلت له أخوك صار بيك، أنا قلت له ودي قدام عيني، قلت له المرحوم أنا ترى خويه على عبه.
أعضاء من البرلمان العراقي والحكومة زاروا هذا المعتقل وبرفقتهم طارق الهاشمي وعادل عبد المهدي نائبا الرئيس العراقي. وخلال الزيارة وصف الهاشمي اعتقال المدنيين بالأمر غير الإنساني وغير القانوني.
قضاياكم نتابع اخواني، ما ننساكم احنا ابدا، لا يمكن نقبل على هذا الظلم، ما نقبل، هذا عار علينا. اصبروا اخواني، اصبروا اخواني.
الهاشمي وصف إدارتي لواءي المثنى والمحمودية التابعين للجيش العراقي بأنهما السبب الرئيسي وراء تأخير عرض قضايا المعتقلين على وزارة العدل، وقال إنه سيتم التحقيق معهما. المعتقلون من جانبهم قالوا إنهم يتعرضون لأسوأ ظروف الاحتجاز.
المسألة الصحية، الرعاية الصحية موجودة.
عدد من أعضاء البرلمان وصفوا ما يجري داخل المعتقل بأنه انتهاك فاضح لحقوق الإنسان، وحملوا رئيس الوزراء نور المالكي المسؤولية عما يجري داخل هذا المعتقل.
Maybe I can start by asking His Excellency a question From which religious faction do these prisoners come, Your Excellency?
Apart from the first pictures about I couldn't tolerate the hours that I spent in such prisons. I cried when I discovered this tragedy for my people. For the old prisoners, majority of them are from the Arab Sunni, but the youngsters, I discovered majority of them from the Shia. The young, majority of them are from the Shia, from Sadr city. Some of the boys, they spend 7-9 months with no knowledge to their mothers and fathers. I ask one question. There are about 70 to 100 in that cell, because each one told me a different story about the torture. But indirectly, I understood that all of them being raped. Then I ask, who not being tortured? No one. Who is not being raped? No one. All being tortured or being raped. How can you tolerate that? And I am a vice president. When I went there, in my capacity, I report back to Maliki, telling him, and Adil Abdul was there with me, you know. And he's from the National Alliance, he's the Shia. And both of them, we really shocked about what we discovered. Then I wrote honestly to the Prime Minister, please change your course. My country drifting in a disaster situation, into a catastrophe. What sort of generation we are generating for those youngsters? They should be on the class and sitting in their schools. We should take care about them as a government. You are penalizing them for what? A car bomb is exploded, then the police is surrounding the same area and arresting all the people inside. Women, youngsters, men, put them in jail and forget about them. You just believe one of the boys, he spent 7 years without nobody asked him, because there is no arrest warrant. 7 years a boy in a prison. This is the situation in my country.
Before I bring you back in, we also have with us the former senior officer from UNAMI in Baghdad, Tarigh Al. I think it would be useful. We have very little time left, so a couple of minutes, if possible, Tarigh, just to emphasize some of the issues we've been talking about and emphasize some of the issues we've just seen in that short film. Tarigh Al. Do we have a microphone? Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, what you just heard from Vice President Tarigh Al Hashemi is a drop of water in an ocean of violations of human rights in Iraq. I was the person in charge of monitoring the situation of human rights in Iraq since February 2009. And I witnessed a lot. And I just want very briefly to give you another example of such violations that I personally monitored and reported. There was 2 women arrested in the ministry, in the building of the Ministry of Interior. That's a story that goes back to 2010. These people, these 2 women, were raped next door to the office of the Minister of Interior. They were raped. One of them had her eyes poked of her head. I reported the incident to the Commission of Human Rights of the Iraqi Parliament. The late chair of this commission did undertake an investigation upon my request, and he reported next day to the Parliament. It was a Thursday. He requested to interrogate, to put questions to the Minister of Interior. Next day, Friday, after the prayers on Friday, while he was going out of the mosque, he was assassinated. This is the situation, how it stands. And I don't think I have time to give you lots of examples of such atrocities. But I could tell you that, again, on my request, the Ministry of Human Rights undertook an investigation of a secret prison in Al-Mosul. I asked them, indicated to them where this secret prison is, and they went. They were refused access to this place. They forced the doors to the premises, and they found in 2 rooms 70 people who haven't seen the lights for the last 3 years, for 3 years. And that was not the story. The story is that 600 of them were underground. For 5 years, they haven't seen the light. And it was courageous, even from the Ministry of Human Rights, to report that they did, in fact, force the doors and discovered those 70 people that were reported in the Ministry of Human Rights. But I know more than that. And unfortunately, we were not allowed, as UNAMI, to report such atrocities. We were asked to report positively. I thank you, Mr. President.
I came all the way to deliver a short message that my country in a disastrous situation. I do face an internal challenge that is well exceeding my capacity. I need your help. This is my message to the European Union, to the free world, to the Western communities, to take care about my country. I know even the media, they are not shedding enough lights on what's going on in my country. They are concentrating on numbers of casualties, daily casualties, the death tolls. Nobody talk about, okay, this country is apparently dragging, and the possibilities of civil wars are already there. What we should do, what sort of obligation we do have as European Union? I said, you are just part of the story. Your troops are joined United States troops and invaded my country in 2003 on the assumption that you are intentionally willing to build a real and modern state, rule of law, democratic state, respecting women and human rights. I am now asking you to fulfill your obligations. My message to the European Union, please, more attention to be given to the Iraqi situation and try to help us. There is a mistrust between the politicians, between the political entities. Our mission internally is difficult. Therefore, I need more engagement from European Union in my tragedy, in my problem. I'm still hoping that European Union, for different reasons, do have an interest to deepen their engagement. We are not only a country who exports energy to the world. We used to be 5,000 years ago the cradle of civilization. We indebted all the nation from Los Angeles back to Tokyo. All the nations indebted of my country. We used to be the cradle of civilization. We ask you now, time comes to pay just part of the cost. And this is why Tarigh Al Hashemi today in Brussels.
Ladies and gentlemen, when George W. Bush announced mission accomplished, and when Barack Obama said that the departure of American troops had left behind a functioning democracy in Iraq, I think now we have heard the truth. Now we have heard the reality. And now we have to pick up the tab. We have to pay the price. We have a moral responsibility. It's the people of Iraq who are suffering. I have been told, and best possible information, that up to $800 million is going out of Iraq every week. Where is it going? This is oil revenue that the people of Iraq, it's their oil, it's their wealth, it's their future. This should be spent on infrastructure, on education for the children. This wealth is going into Swiss bank accounts and offshore bank accounts for a corrupt, venal government that is running a tragic, catastrophic situation with secret prisons, with oppression, with torture, with more executions now than any other country in the world apart from China and neighboring Iran. This is not the future that we spent our lives and our economic wealth to bring to the people of Iraq. This is an outrage, and I'm so grateful to His Excellency Dr. Al Hashemi to risk his own security in coming here to give us this information. Thank you all for your attendance. Thank you.